Happy 2020. We are here. We are in the new year. It has been since, I believe, December 17th, since the broadcast has joined you this evening on Tuesday nights, 8 o'clock p.m. I am thankful to be back. The team and I are here. We are excited about 2020 and what the broadcast is going to bring, the information, the ideas, the guests, the shows, the memes, everything we've got going on. Has been all about building towards these elections and everything that's happening in our community, our city, our state, and of course across the nation. And we've got some stuff tonight we're going to talk about. It's a big evening for our country. But from right here in San Antonio, local to us, local to broadcast, we are thankful you are joining us this evening. So a couple things we always start with. You got to like this stream. You got to share the stream. It's about information. A lot of news flying around tonight, a lot of unknowns, a lot of things going on. So we don't know what tonight's necessarily going to look like. But if you like it and share it and push the stream out, we're going to talk about current events, but we're also going to hop into what's happening at City Hall. We have a special guest tonight we're going to bring on and talk to as well. So we've got a lot brewing, but because of some of the things that are happening in the national news, we're going to take it easy tonight on some of the comedy and really focus on big issues and things that matter to all of us. So, but you have to like it, you have to share it, you have to push it out. We're trying to grow this and build this. And like I said in the promo video, if you saw it, Brockton Loaded for 2020. We are going to bring the fight every week we do the show. Every opportunity we have to talk to you, we're not going to hold back. We're going to tell people exactly what we think. And by the way, we're going to invite everybody from the other side. If you disagree with it, you can come on the show. If you agree with me, come on the show. If you want to talk or have a debate, a conversation, bring it on the show. Let's have an opportunity. I'll come out and meet you in the community. We can do whatever is necessary to have a good, honest debate in our community about the things that matter, and then let people decide with their vote. That big vote's coming on March 3rd with these primaries and across the state of Texas. And then, of course, we go into November with the biggest election year in the history of our republic. 2020 is going to be huge. For things like tonight that are happening in the Middle East, our country, the direction of our future as a city, as a state, as a country, it's all on the line. 2020 is going to be huge, so we have a great opportunity to have all those conversations. And it will be unleashed, no holds barred, and I always say, if you get your feelings hurt about politics and it really upsets you, you may want to tune out a little bit, all right? I don't want to melt snowflakes in the house, but I will tell you, we will shred the issues. We will talk about them and have the hard facts and ideas, and let's just get it on the table. Like it, share it, push it out there. We are streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and we're pushing everywhere we can to have good, honest conversation, and we invite you on the show. So for 2020, we want to thank Saulo Rodriguez and the team who are putting the stream together. I'm telling you right now, if you got a business, if you're a politician, if you're a candidate, and you want to get your information or news out there, Saulo Rodriguez is exactly the person to do it. He puts this whole show on. He somehow or another miraculously makes me look 10 years younger on this guy. I don't even know if that's true or not, but I just thought I'd throw that in there. But look, he does all the work with Charlie Castanedo and Tyler Hall here tonight. We're thankful for what they do to help us bring this in. This is a labor of love for all of us. We're here just trying to push information. So if you need that work for your business or your candidacy, call us. We'll take care of you, and I'll refer you to Saulo. He does one heck of a job. Big thanks tonight, of course, to our sponsors as well. AAA Garcia Bail Bonds, Louis Garcia, we always talk about his big work in helping us out. I love that logo. I like the way he's got 2 A's in the cuffs and 1 A out. But if you get any problems or trouble, look, Louis is going to take care of you, man. Family-owned business. He's also a brother. He's a consejo. He does great work. And he runs a good family-owned business. He'll take care of you. And we thank our friend Tyler Hall, too, from Speedy Salt. Tyler, of course, helps us on the show as well. But he also has this miraculous little invention where he delivers his salt for you unannounced. You don't even know you need salt. Tyler Hall takes care of you. So big thanks to Speedy Salt and our good friend at the family, the Garcia family, AAA Garcia Bail Bonds. Thank you to the both of you. We really appreciate it. Tonight, normally the broadcast starts with comedy, and I bring something goofy on. I was actually going to talk about fireworks in San Antonio, because it was New Year, it was 2020. We violate every fireworks law in the history of this nation in San Antonio. We say, Saulo's laughing over there. We say, don't pop your fireworks, and then we turn around and it's Armageddon on December 31st at 11:59. But we're not going to do that tonight. We're going to have those conversations because tonight, right now, in our country, we're under attack. So I think it matters that we have some good conversation tonight about the things that are happening in our nation, right? And we're going to do that in a couple of minutes. So we're going to skip over and gloss over some of that comedy stuff. We don't need that right now. And we'll get to the issue of Iran with our special guest tonight, Sharon Breckenridge Thomas. She's running for Congress in the 23rd Congressional District. There it is. Love the logo. Man, Salo, you are good, man. I just mentioned it. Here comes the logo. So we're going to get to Sharon in a second. I got a couple things, a little house cleaning item I want to knock out first. And then we're going to bring Sharon in and have a great conversation, especially tonight with all that's happening in our national news and what's going on in Iran right now in Iraq. But look, I also always recognize our first responders when we get a shot today. If you could put up Detective Cliff Martinez's photo, I'd really appreciate it, Salo. I think it's like number, there he is right there. So today was Detective Martinez's funeral service at CBC. And we want to always thank the men and women who serve our community in a public safety manner. Detective Martinez was working an off-duty shift, tried to break up a fight, and was killed. And look, he was murdered just trying to help his community. And these line-of-duty deaths with police officers, firefighters, when they're doing their job and they're just trying to make us all safe, and then something bad happens to them, it hurts all of us. But we say a special prayer for Detective Martinez, the San Antonio Independent School District family who lost one of their own. And then, of course, any law enforcement officer can tell you these things are it is an unbelievably difficult moment for anybody who wears a uniform when they lose one of their own. And when an end of watch occurs like this, and Detective Martinez, we are honored and thankful for you, your family, the sacrifices you've given this community. They did apprehend the two subhumans that did that to Detective Martinez. So we pray that justice is served swiftly and they are taken care of. But for Detective Martinez, there's not a lot of answers for that family. So from us, we always give a 30-second moment of silence. We want to say thank you, Detective Martinez. We are blessed for your service and sacrifice, obviously. And we want to just say thank you. And it hurts all of us. The SAISD community, we're praying for you. Detective Martinez and your family, we're praying for you. And Godspeed. We wish you swift journey to heaven. And let's make sure that all of our first responders are taken care of and thought about each and every day. I can't tell you how much it means to me and my family just being thankful for what they do in our community. And SAISD, and you never know when these men and women are off duty, on duty, when something's going to happen. And a line of duty death is absolutely tragic. So 30 seconds is not enough time, but we want to take a moment of silence for Detective Martinez. We are thankful for you, brother, and the rest of your brothers and sisters will take the watch from here. All right, thank you, Detective Martinez. We did have some Ricky Gervais jokes tonight. I don't know if you watched the Golden Globes. We're going to pass on that one as well. We would love to pick on Hollywood tonight, but we're going to pass on that one. I do want to give you one update, though, that we are working on before we jump into and bring Sharon on. Salo, myself and the team, Tyler, Charlie, my wife, my son, we're working on a very special project. We're calling this the San Antonio African American World War II Warrior Project. And we're going out into the community. We're trying to find in San Antonio World War II veterans. We interviewed our first, and can put this picture up, Willie Foster. He's just right. Actually, Salo's hiding him right there. There he is right there. Willie Foster, man, 97 years old, World War II veteran, served overseas in India, shot while in India during World War II. San Antonio, lifelong San Antonio resident. We spent about 45 minutes interviewing him. As you could tell, we got smiles on our face. And Willie, of course, Mr. Foster is dressed like he is ready to bring it. He's 97 and he's already ready to go. In fact, I asked him if I could borrow that hat. He said, hell no. So that is the man, Mr. Foster. We talked about his mom. You know, one of the beauties of that conversation I'll never forget is when we asked him about his mom, and he said how he came home on a train, and his mom and his grandma were waiting for him. And when we play this in the future, we're going to play his interview, and we're going to cut it up and put together a little documentary of as many of these men we can find. And we know, look, World War II veterans are dying by the day at this point. You got to imagine they're all 90 plus years old, and there are several of them in San Antonio. We got to find them. We got to document them. We're focusing in on the African American community from Fred Brock, American Legion Post over on Martin Luther King Drive. We're going in there. We're interviewing as many as we can get over there. It's a special moment, I think, and we want to put a special focus on this. But the truth is, there are World War II veterans as well. We all know across every nationality, every race in our city. We're going to find them. We're going to get out there and try to record as many of their living histories as possible. And I tell you, it's more a labor of love than anything. My wife came up with the idea, I'll be honest with you, driving away from a Veterans Day ceremony. We met a couple of World War II veterans, and she said, we should record those. And then from there it went, and it's turned into this, and we're thankful for it. So be a part of it. I'm going to start updating and keeping you informed on that. But it's going to be huge and awesome, and we're very thankful for it. And we look forward to that project and bring it to you as quickly as possible. Oh yeah. Tyler.
To get some fried chicken.
He did. He went. Mr. Foster literally drove home. Like he hopped in his car, 97, 98 years. Well, he's 98. Excuse me, he's 98. He hopped in his car and drove home after the interview. I actually did wait a little while to make sure he was home before I got in my car myself and followed him. No, I'm just kidding. Mr. Foster jumped in his car and drove off. That is the man right there. 98 years old. Hopped in his car following the interview and said, I'll see y'all later. We gotta love that. So let's jump into it right now. So big stuff happening in our world right now. So as we all know, if in case you didn't tune in or anything, you haven't been turned on TV, the Iranians, the Republican Guard, the Iranians, the Ayatollah, their regime, whatever you want to call it, has struck back on the United States, hitting Al-Assad Air Base in Iraq. And one other installation where military men and women are housed. They've launched ballistic missiles, well over a dozen, into Iraq from Iran, already verified from Iranian soil. Ballistic missiles, short and medium range, and this is very important. This is different than launching, you remember the old Scud missiles from back in the day? Or these aren't small militias or anything. No, this is a calculated ballistic missile attack, short and medium range. These knuckleheads can't hit us from Iran. But what they can do is target bases, and they're highly sophisticated in comparison to what we've seen in the past from Iran. So they've gotten better at it. They put some money into it. But tonight they struck back because obviously the president, the United States military, took out one of their top generals who was, frankly, a committed terrorist from Iran. They took him out about a week ago in an airstrike in a Baghdad airport. So they took out this General Soleimani. And of course, the Iranians are up in arms about it. Some Democrats and Hollywood types are even up in arms about it, defending this guy. But this terrorist was taken out. The Iranians have responded in kind tonight. And we are in not in a de facto state of war, because we will win any conflict with Iran. This is one of the things you got to know, just in case, because I've been seeing a lot of stuff flying around about, I'm going to get drafted, and this is the end of the world, and it's World War III. Iran is a joke. And we will annihilate them off the face of the planet. The United States military is the preeminent power in the history of the world. And these knuckleheads aren't even playing in the same league. So what they've done tonight is escalate further to a point of, we don't know what the president's committed to. Massive retaliatory response, overwhelming. We know it's going to happen. He's got to do it. But you got to defend American interests. And I'm going to tell you a story, and then we're going to bring Sharon on. This is very similar to when I was in basic training. I went in basic training in the United States Air Force in 1990. Over December, I got into basic training. And my mother herself was in the United States Army at the time, and she was deployed to Kuwait. And we, at that time period, if you remember the original Desert Storm, Desert Shield War, we came in, and overnight, President Bush said, look, we're going to come in and shock and awe and kick Saddam Hussein the heck out of Kuwait. We're going to push him back into Baghdad and take care of him. And there was a period of time when we started and launched this war, very short war. I don't even think the thing was 100 days. But we destroyed the Iraqi army. But that is the same type of feeling. You just don't know what's going to happen. You know the bombs are dropping. We have to pray and be thankful and forthright in supporting the men and women who are in theater right now at these bases, who are subjected to this kind of terrorism. But they're in harm's way. Our men and women are there. I remember my mom, like it was yesterday. It was like about 12:30 at night when President Bush launched the attack on Iraq. And I'm in basic training, and my mom she's in theater. Like, my mom's in the war, and I'm in basic training 5,000 miles away. But my mom was in the sand. Like, she was in Kuwait doing a job. And I remember thinking to myself, man, we have men and women in harm's way. One of them women was my mom, but it's the same feeling tonight. We have to think about these men and women who are putting it on the line, and we have to remember everything that this country stands for. And I don't care how much you hate President Donald Trump. I don't give a damn how much you hate him. Tonight is about, and the future now is about, full support for our military and overwhelming response to anybody who threatens us or does anything in the manner that the Iraqis have tried tonight. It is total annihilation coming their way if they continue this path. But what's sad is, obviously, is that there's young men and women who are going to be put in harm's way. But they signed up for it. They know the job. They know the duty. We don't want to go to war. That's not what this country wants. But when it engages, it's overwhelming, and it will end the Iranian regime if they continue to pursue it. So don't ever fear. All the fear-mongering about World War III, losing wars and stuff like that, ain't going to happen. The United States is not going to lose anything to Iran. They will annihilate them, but that's not what we want, obviously. We want capitulation and rather do it through diplomatic, peaceful means. But if necessary, this country will force the issue, and the president will obliterate Iran. And let's just hope and pray that the men and women, it's few casualties, we take care of business to get it knocked out. So think about that tonight. We'll see you and we'll keep you updated. We got the phones going. Tyler, keep an eye on it. We're going to get into this debate on congressional races and the March 3rd primary. We got some big stuff coming. So I am thrilled tonight, and we took a few minutes there, obviously, getting into the good stuff, but thrilled tonight to have Sharon Breckenridge Thomas joining the show. I love that logo there. Man, you are good again, Salo. You brought it right up. So Sharon Thomas, running for Congress in the Congressional District number 23. Sharon, welcome to the show. We are glad to have you here tonight. You picked the heck of, look, you got timing. You picked the heck of a night to come on the show and talk about issues and things in our country. So welcome. We're thankful that you're here tonight. We've been looking forward to trying to get you on. A good friend of ours, joint friend of ours, David V. Hill, your treasurer. I think he's your treasurer for your campaign, right? So David's been trying to connect us and get you on the show for quite a while now, and here you are. We're thankful you're joining us, and we're going to introduce you and give you a couple minutes to say hello here. But first off, what do you think? Before we even get into the hellos, what do you think about what's happening tonight? What's your read on the country? What's happening?
So what I think is really important, what you said was great. We have to consider the families that are here as well. It made me, when I got the news that we had been attacked by Iran, it made me think back to when my father served in Korea and Vietnam. He was in Intel. And when he went over, I was 4 years old, and I remember that like it was yesterday. And I remember going to the airport with my father. We were in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, because that's where my mom was from, so we were gonna be close to family while he was gone. And I remember we went to the airport, and it was dark like it is now, and my mom had on these huge sunglasses. And I knew something was wrong because she didn't need sunglasses, and what she was trying to do was to hide her tears from the four of us. And I remember my dad getting down on his knees to speak to me because I was supposed to start school, and he was supposed to be there when I started kindergarten. And he said, "I'm not gonna be there, but I will be back." And as a 4-year-old, I can tell you the hole that I felt in my heart that my father was leaving. And so as we're praying for our troops, we must also pray for the families that are here, and they're getting news like we didn't get back then. And
yeah. Immediately, they're getting it immediately.
We're getting it immediately, and so we need to really pray for the families that are here, that are representative of our men and women that are in real-time theater war at this time.
Yeah, Sharon, I don't think you could have put it any better.
Yeah.
And that's a great comparison to what it was like Vietnam, what it was like in Korea. I mean, people would deploy, they'd do the job, and you wouldn't get information for days.
Right.
You wouldn't know where you're. I was talking to we were talking about Mr. Foster, right?
Yeah.
We wouldn't hear from him. He wouldn't hear from his family at all, months.
Right.
But today, there's men and women who are in this right now in San Antonio, probably who's got families or loved ones over there who are in harm's way, and they're getting the news like that. Right?
Yeah.
And through Twitter and God knows what else other mediums are out there, and a lot of times they're wondering, staring at the screen, looking for a glimpse or a picture of information. Thank you for that. That's a wonderful story. So, you're running for Congress. I want to ask you some use of force questions. I want to talk about that in a second, but let's tell everybody and give them your elevator speech, your 1 to 2 minutes, who you are, what brings you into this, It's running for Congress. That's like totally no joke. That's
Yeah.
the big show.
Absolutely.
So talk to us about where you come from, a little bit of background.
Okay.
I know you're very accomplished. You've served in the state before, and you got a law degree, a bunch of stuff. Tell us who you are and what brings you to it.
Okay, so I am the candidate to represent District 23 in Congress, and I am the candidate that will defeat Gina Ortiz-Jones. I'd like to start out from that vantage point. There are many people who believe that District 23 is gone and that District 23 will be flipped. And we better be really careful on how we vote, or that may very well happen from a Republican perspective. And to reiterate, I am the person to take on Gina Ortiz-Jones and to defeat her in this congressional race. Where do I come from? I was born in Germany. My father was in the military, so the whole family was in Germany when I was born, and I've lived literally all over the world. I've lived in Japan, I've lived in France, I've lived on the island of Crete, and had a very nice life when I look back on it from a perspective of how it is that I was raised. And we came back to the United States when I was in high school, and it was the time that my father was retiring from the Air Force, and he decided to retire in San Antonio, Texas.
Wise choice.
He's from Charlottesville, Virginia. My
right.
mom's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but they decided to make San Antonio home. So I've been in San Antonio since the 1970s. And I came back to San Antonio to attend high school, and I attended John Jay High School.
Whoa.
John Jay has put out some really good students.
John Jay, otherwise known as the Harvard of the Southwest.
That's right.
John Jay grad.
Right here.
And Gina Ortiz-Jones is too, but we
Yeah,
won't talk about that.
We won't talk about that.
That was unplanned, by the way.
Yeah. I attended John Jay, and then I went on to do my undergraduate work at St. Mary's University, and then St. Mary's University School of Law.
All right, so you got a law degree. What are you doing right now? Well, we know what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
You're committed full time to running for Congress.
Right.
But what is your day job prior to getting involved in politics?
So prior to getting involved, I was working with the San Antonio Bar Association. There's a pro bono legal service program that we provide for the city where we represent veterans and members of military families pro bono. And it's a great organization where attorneys all over the city volunteer their time freely to serve veterans and family members of military people. So that's what I was doing prior to that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And look at your bio. You've had some previous appointments, and you've been involved in and out of political kind of
Correct.
circles, so to speak,
Correct.
in appointments and stuff like that. Why don't you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about where you've served and who you've helped,
Okay.
who appointed you, stuff like that. I think it's important for people to know.
So I served under Governor Perry in the Texas Human Rights Commission, where we heard cases regarding housing discrimination and employment law discrimination. I also serve under Governor Abbott at this time as a commissioner with the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. And so with the passing and the funeral service of Detective Martinez, our thoughts and our prayers go out to the Martinez family as well.
That's very true.
Yeah.
That's very true. You know, and people who are defending our country, they're doing it overseas tonight. We know that. And God knows what's coming in the future
Yeah.
with that. But we have people defending our streets every day,
Right.
right? I mean, they're
Right.
doing it every day, and that's our law enforcement and our first responders in the fire department as well. They're always out there putting it on the line, so we continue to be thankful for that. But before I get into some things that you want to do in Congress, look, we got questions about Congress and its normalcy, right? If you
Right.
can ever call Congress normal, which I don't know if you can do that anymore because it's a total swamp, and we know that. But tonight we have, and this, let's just set the stage before I ask the question.
Okay.
Tonight we have a president who's under siege, literally, from every Democrat there is in Washington, D.C. Well, they're all after him, right?
Yeah.
He's been impeached. They're coming after him. They hate him and everything he stands for. This president can never do anything right when it comes to Democrats. Now we're in a potential state of war, right? We're under attack overseas. Not a huge threat, Iran is, but it's still a massive threat when you talk about any American life lost is valuable, right? So we're under siege. You got a lot of Democrats literally supporting, Iranian positions. It's kind of weird. Like they're not all out saying but they're apologizing. I mean, there's people in Hollywood apologizing to Iran. There's House members of the House of Representatives, which you want to be a part of, who are destroying the president, going after the president in time periods. Now this changes it a little bit, because if the country's at war and our men and women are get into a warlike scenario, they're under attack, you would think people would come together.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen, right? They're going to continue to attack the president. So I think my first question to you would be about kind of this War Powers Act conversation, this conversation about the use of force. What's your position, and how do you think? Because if you go there, you're going to have a vote.
That's right.
So how are you going to approach that in Congress when it comes to using force, the president's positions, and if you were there right now, what would you be doing?
If I were there right now, I would support President Trump 100%. When dealing with terrorists, you cannot use appeasement, and you cannot send a plane load of money over and call that diplomacy. And what President Trump has done is he has represented our country and said that you are not going to mess with the United States, not within the borders of our nation, nor will you destroy our personnel and our interests abroad. And that's the way you have to deal with terrorists. You can't sit down at a table and negotiate with individuals who want to destroy you. You have to have a different strategy.
Yeah, well, I think I'm in my strategy. I think I lost my mic. Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Okay, but you got me now?
Yeah.
All right, did you get my previous question? Everything was good. Okay, I'm going to go to the mic just in case so we don't lose it. So, I mean, that's perfect, right? Because the problem becomes supporting the president. Look, you don't have to agree with what the president, you don't have to agree with everything the president's saying. Obviously not. That's why you're elected. You represent an individual district. There's 435 members of the House of Representatives. There's 100 senators. So everybody's got a different viewpoint and represent a different group of people. But when it comes to something like this, you got to get unified behind the United States military. So, there's going to be some word out there now. It's going to come heavy that the War Powers Act and different things are saying that the president must brief Congress prior to any attack, and all these things are going to pop up, and the Democrats are going to push back. But I think it does matter now more than ever that those people, that the support for the president doesn't have to be for the man himself, but it has to be for the office, right? Or the future one day, it'll be the woman herself sitting in that job, whoever it is, right? That you support that role, you support the commander-in-chief in a wartime atmosphere like this. So what do you think from a position, how are you going to work with these people? Because it ain't even, look, they have the majority in the House of Representatives, right? We've seen it. They impeached the president, a strictly party line vote.
Right.
Is there any working together anymore, or is there anything that you would try to do? You bring a lot of negotiation and legal skills to it. So what do you think your approach would be with Democrats in a very difficult and divided Congress?
Exactly. So governance is important, correct? As a representative, I will be sent to represent the voice of the individual constituents that are in District 23, and governance is important. But, and I don't know if you've ever heard this saying, you've heard the saying, you give a person a rope when they want to be a cowboy. So negotiating and being diplomatic does not mean that you give away everything that you believe in, and that you turn against the conservative values and principles that are important in this nation. I'm going to be representing constituents, and I've spoken to constituents, and what I'm hearing from the constituents in District 23 is that they want a representative that's going to consistently represent their constitutional principles in Washington, D.C. And I can give them my word that I am the candidate that will do that.
So let's dig down in a couple of that pieces, because
Okay.
we get out of the slogans and catchphrases,
Right.
right? That's because we were famous for that.
Right.
I've been an elected official, so I love the actual leadership by slogan mentality. You can sit out there and say nothing. Politicians have a knack, and I was one of them, for saying nothing but filling a lot of airtime, right?
Yeah.
Like you could talk a lot and it doesn't equate.
Hey, did you just say I said nothing?
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
okay,
not
all
you,
right.
not
Okay,
you. I'm
okay.
talking about politicians. And
Okay.
I did the me.
Okay.
But I think, like when I led or I got involved in politics, I just like to say it. So, and I'm sensing from the same from you. Like you have something to say, you're going to say what you think.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's your legal background that there ain't no, you put it on the line. So let's dig into those constitutional principles. I want to know what are 2 or 3 things you do when you get to Congress, but what are some core values that you think, when you say constitutional principles, define that a little further for the people watching, and what that means and how that's going to guide your decision making, especially from your legal background and the things you're doing, your life, your upbringing. How's that going to go into your decision making and define those constitutional principles as as short and sweet as you can, but I want people to know what that means to you.
Okay, so constitutional principle number 1, First Amendment. Individuals in this country have a foundational right to free speech and a foundational right to freedom of exercise of religion. And what we're seeing in this country right now is a full force assault on those rights. And so as a congresswoman, I would represent the First Amendment rights that my constituents deserve to have represented in Congress. Absolutely. And so what I mean by that, we've just seen where the white settlement church was just attacked. And if it had not been for the security and the congregants that had guns, it would have been a bloodbath. Now, there are attacks all over this country, not just in Christian churches, but all types of religious organizations are being attacked. You've seen the attacks that have happened in New York against the Jewish community. And so that's a straight-on attack on the First Amendment. You're saying to individuals that you no longer will be free to congregate and to express your religious beliefs. And so First Amendment rights are extremely important. Second Amendment rights are tied to it. And what I find really problematic is this attempt to criminalize the Second Amendment. And it's established in the Constitution that the right to bear arms is a right that the Congress will not infringe upon, is how it's worded. It doesn't say that Congress gave the right, because the right is a right that comes from natural law. As individuals and as human beings, we have a right to defend ourselves, and we have a right to choose the means by which we're going to defend ourselves. If we criminalize the Second Amendment, then only the criminals are going to have guns.
That is, boy, honestly, we've been doing some interviews like this, and we have not seen that kind of explanation. If you criminalize the Second Amendment, only the criminals will have guns.
Exactly.
That's well thought out. So thank you for defining that. So look, and I got to agree with you, the faith-based issue, right? And it's, we go back to this old lame argument, this separation of church and state thing, which I've heard you define. You know what, you give it, I was at the District 23 debate, and you gave an explanation on separation of church and state. You talked about that. I mean, you hit the faith issue hard, and I think, San Antonio is a city built on faith.
Right.
And we try to marginalize it in politics all day long. And why that is, I don't know. Because the core tenets of faith are very simple, right?
Right.
Faith, hope, and love. Those of us that have the least in the society, we try to do the most we can for them, right?
Exactly.
It's that argument. So talk to me about that separation of faith and church and state, and run that through a little bit, because it's an interesting conversation.
So the separation of church and state is taught erroneously as if it is a constitutional principle, and it is not. It is a concept that was presented by Thomas Jefferson to discuss how it is we're going to establish our government and to make sure that the government does not encroach upon citizens' rights to gather in religious worship. In other words, that we were not going to have a nation that operated like England, where the king told individuals when they were going to worship, how it is they were going to worship, and oh, by the way, here's what you're going to pay to worship. And so when the founding fathers came over to the country and established this country, one of the first things that was important in conversation and in dialogue was to establish that we would have a nation where the government would not encroach upon the citizens' rights to worship in the manner in which they want to.
Oh, and we're encroaching, the government's encroaching on that. If they could do it, they'd go further if they could.
Yeah.
It depends on who's in charge of the government. I mean, obviously, it depends on political party or political leanings.
Right.
But they would completely encroach on us if they could. And I think, and it starts in little tiny ways that you don't recognize. Right.
And if we don't address it, then the encroachments just continue to increase and continue to increase. And what has happened is in our educational system, in our public educational system, we're teaching error to students. And individuals are not even comfortable in talking about their religion and their religious beliefs.
Oh, we systematically dismantled faith in schools.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been going on for decades now.
Yeah.
So I think, look, it's an interesting conversation. I love the way you describe the separation of church and state, because a lot of us just take the argument. I'll be honest with you. I just say, well, that's, total bullshit. I'm going to faith drives every decision I make. Like that's, most of us approach it like that in politics, which is, no, we need to have faith in politics. And then the other side is dismantling it piece by piece. They've done it successfully through the courts, by the way. And it's gone all the way, in many of these cases, litigated all the way to the United States Supreme Court, where they've systematically chipped away at faith. And I think when you talk about what the separation really meant, or what Thomas Jefferson was trying to do, I think it's a great point, and it's another viewpoint just for people to recognize that.
And on that point, that's why it's important that we have President Trump, because President Trump has the authority to appoint Supreme Court justices.
Well, he's appointed a couple.
And he's appointed a couple that we think are going to base their decisions upon the rule of law. That is what judges are supposed to do, is base their decisions upon the rule of law, not create law as they go.
Right. What is that called? Stare decisis. I almost went to law school.
Yeah.
I chose the United States.
It's never too late.
It's never too late. I'll be 80 trying to pass a class on constitutional law. That's great. Yeah. No, but that's a great point, right? It's on the rule of law. And I think we've gotten so far off that path. Yes. And it really depends on where you're at too. In Texas, we've seen Texas, you mentioned the Second Amendment, which I think is very interesting. What happened, you mentioned the church shooting where one of the deacons who was took out the shooter himself within 6 seconds. Yeah. And there was 5, 7, 8 armed church members in that church. But that was a moment where you had Second Amendment and faith. Intersecting in one moment. Yeah. And not just moment, like in seconds. Yeah. In seconds, it all came together. Mm-hmm. So Second Amendment rights with the faith right, because look, they're going after faith for a reason. Yeah. And it's the same thing we see overseas right now. We see it across, whether you mentioned the Jewish community as well. What happened in the Northeast. Yeah. A lot of religion is under attack, and when we marginalize that, I think we risk the core of who we are as a community, and it's dangerous. So,
but let me say this on the mass shootings, because I believe that there is a problem.
Oh yeah,
there's a problem. But the legislators are not looking at the core of the problem. And what we see in many of these instances is that there's a mental illness component and there's a homelessness component. We had both of those components with the incident in White Settlement, Texas. And so that's where we should be looking to resolve this issue. I'm not saying, we're gonna keep our guns and we don't care what's happening in the mass shootings, but I am saying to the Congress and anybody else that would like to infringe upon my Second Amendment rights, your you can't have our guns. And that's how adamant you must be.
Because look, the other side's being just as adamant, right? Yeah. There's no middle ground any longer on it. And we saw it when the presidential candidates in the Beto O'Rourke going as far as saying, we're going to take your guns, right? And there's still people saying that. So it's not like this is we can compromise and figure it out. So that's great points. I really appreciate that. 3 things. So you get to Congress, you win the job, you're sitting in there, you go do your internship or whatever. No, not internship. What do they call it when you show up? Your initiation. Your
freshman
orientation. That's what. I'm sorry. I'm trying. But you do your orientation. You show up. They show you where all the good stuff is. You get your office. You sit down with a team. 3 things. What are some of the most important things that you want? You only got 2 years before you're running for re-election again, probably in 18 months.
18 months, correct.
So talk to us. Let us know what jumps to the top of your list, whether it's things you heard on the campaign trail already or just what's core to you as a person. What are the 2 or 3 things you'd want to jump after you get the job?
So I would like to address the issue of life and what this country has done with regard to innocent babies in the womb. I would definitely be a voice in terms of the erroneous definition that we have given to babies in the womb, to say that when I was in high school, we were taught that babies in the womb were not human. And then by the time I got to college, it was like, well, they're human. And by the time I got to law school, it was, okay, they're human, but they're obligate parasites. And so because they're obligate parasites, they're obligated to the mother's womb, the mother gets to say what she's going to do. Now we're saying, okay, they're humans, but they don't have human dignity. And that should raise a red flag for all of us, because Hitler used the same argument when he annihilated the Jews. And the Southern Democrats used the same arguments to justify slavery. And when you begin to tinker with the definition of humanity, you've gone too far.
I'm going to cut you off. I'm sorry, but human dignity is a basis of faith.
Yes.
Like when you, I'm a Catholic, and it's one of them things, right, where the other side of the political party will often say your faith is, you're using faith to destroy my life, right, or my lifestyle, my life, my beliefs. Faith is destroying that. In reality, human dignity, when I sat with the Archbishop after I got elected here in San Antonio, my wife and I sat with him, and because I was worried, how do I legislate my beliefs? Because I'm in the same belief as you are.
Yeah.
On the life issue, it's personal, it's faith-driven. There's a lot that goes into it for me. But he said, you know what? If you always cast your vote on the grounds of human dignity, you're gonna land right every time.
Every time.
So he just said human dignity. Keep thinking about it. Keep thinking about it, and just always run it through that prism.
Now here's the danger, though. I want to mention, I haven't heard anybody mention this, but if we label the baby in the womb as not having human dignity, from a law perspective, there is a principle called derivative rights, and you derive your rights from the greater being. Does that make sense? And so a tomato plant produces tomatoes. Apple trees produce apples. Is that correct? So from a female feminist perspective, if we allow the babies in the womb to be designated as lacking in human dignity, we're allowing a law on the books to be set up to suggest that we as women, because we are the larger proponent from which these babies come from, that then we don't have human dignity either. Does that make sense? Derivative rights say that the baby in the womb derives their human rights from the mother.
What a contradiction, though, because we have laws on the books that, if a baby is murdered in the womb, that it has a life component to it. It is considered a life. There's additional legal ramifications for killing a mother, right? A pregnant woman at that point. So it's a lot of contradictions going on back and forth. But the human dignity argument is huge. I love that argument. So life, human dignity, definitions, what else? What jumps at the top of your list?
So we're from Texas, right?
Texas.
And we've got the largest district in the nation. And so, of course, land is important. And what's going on our border is extremely important. And the politicians in D.C. need to stop playing games with our border. We are now at the precipice of perhaps entering into another war, and we can't get the $8.6 million that President Trump requested in order to build that wall. And to be quite frank with you, from a militaristic perspective, if anyone is going to come into this country to do harm, one of the first places they're going to look is the Texas border. And so it's extremely important that we resolve this issue and get our security in check along the Texas border.
Here comes a tough question. So
Okay.
here comes a tough one. Because now I'm going to key into this one too. So the human dignity component when it comes to illegal immigration, right?
Yes,
To
yes.
undocumented persons.
Yes.
So again, this is a conversation I think that gets co-opted by the Democrats, right? They'll turn around and say, we don't give a damn about these people. Hence the cages conversation, which they won't admit that Barack Obama is the one that initiated children in cages. They won't do any of that. They're going to turn that eye to the facts and the history. But the human dignity component, there is a component to that, right? When it comes to immigration and how we allow people into our country, who do we take care of, who do we send back home, how we send that back home? What do you think about the immigration argument on that? How do you handle that?
So, Martin Luther King had a saying, and he said we have to be tender-hearted but tough-minded. And from a scriptural perspective, it is wise as a serpent and gentle as a dove. And so we must formulate our immigration issues based upon what is going on in our country and what's going on globally. The immigration system that we have in place is the immigration system of our great-grandparents. And our great-grandparents didn't perhaps face some of the dangers that we face today, especially with the danger of terrorism and the fact that we are now a global world. And so as legislatures, we must make rules that are in keeping with what's happening today. And so, wise as serpent means being tough-minded, and yet tender-hearted. So from what my research has shown me, President Trump has proposed a 60-30-10 immigration process. And in that 60-30-10, it would become merit-based, like the immigration system in Canada and the immigration system in Australia, where the country would look at individuals that would like to enter into our country to see whether or not there is some merit. Are they going to bring something? Are they going to benefit this country? And if so, then they're going to be given certain points. And then we're going to look at whether or not individuals are really in need of amnesty. Is there something going on horribly where we need to admit individuals from an amnesty perspective? And then the final proponent or component is, now let's look at family connection. And so when you hear the media says, oh, he doesn't want to do anything with families anymore, and that's not true. But we have to formulate our immigration system in such a way that it is beneficial to us as a nation as well.
You liked what you said about the media, right? Because that, I'm telling you, boy, that is completely. We make fun of the fake news and we act like it's humorous, but I'm telling you what, it is. It's legitimate. The news is not reflective of the reality of what's happening in our country. People are noticing it and they're opening their eyes to it. Look, we got to cut off on this because we've been gone, but it's been a great discussion, and I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to close it up here and give you a minute or two to give a closing argument, just say, hey, this is who I am, wrap it up and tell people what you think. But I think this is what I want to make sure that I think is important. It's a big race in the 23rd Congressional District. There's going to be a well-funded Democratic candidate, most likely Gina Ortiz-Jones. You know, she's going to have a couple $1 million in the bank. She's going to be running on a particular platform. And then we have, 9 people in the District 23 race on the Republican side. Voting is March 3rd. Actually starts February 18th. That's for all Texas primary. February 18th to February 28th is voting. March 3rd is election day. And then you're going to go into a big battle in November. I agree with you. I don't think the seat is a foregone conclusion. I think Gina Ortiz-Jones got her hands full. She acted kind of a little lost when she got defeated by Will Hurd last go around. She even went to Washington, D.C. after getting beat, went to freshman orientation. I don't know why she would do that, but it's not a lock for her by any means. So getting into a good race, having an argument, and those things matter. I think you brought some great points tonight. And I really appreciate the fact we went in depth on stuff and didn't just sit here and throw the slogan out. You really are digging into it. So I'm thankful for that. But I want to give you a couple minutes to close it up, tell people what you think, and give them their parting shot, and then we'll see you on the campaign trail. Really looking forward to it and very thankful. So it's yours.
Thank you. So if you would like to have your voice heard in Washington, D.C., and your conservative values respected, I'm the candidate for District 23. If you believe, as I believe, that District 23 can remain red, I'm the candidate for District 23. If you believe that our country has been founded on constitutional principles that should in no way be infringed upon, I am the candidate for District 23. If you want someone to go to Washington, D.C. to represent your voice and your interest, then I ask you that you would allow me to earn your vote. I'm Sharon Breckenridge Thomas, and I'd like to be your Congresswoman for District 23. Thank you.
There it is, the closing argument. Thank you, Sharon. We appreciate it. I'm going to wrap up the show. We got a few things to talk about. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank
we
you
appreciate
so much.
it. Happy to have you. Happy to have you. David,
you.
It's good to see you too. Thank you for being here. All right. Well, come on, man. Let's get we back up on the scene. Oh, here we are. Now we're back in the big show. I got to tell you what, we've had some conversations on the broadcast. We've talked to candidates. We've gone back and forth. We've had some good times. We had some non-answers. We've had a lot of great answers. Tonight, I think Sharon really brought some good arguments, especially around human dignity and the right to life issues and just the law behind how things work. Huge discussion and ideas to be brought forward on how we actually navigate what we believe in a very tough Congress, right? And we talked a little bit about the use of force, the President of the United States, how we defend what we believe as a country, and all the laws and everything surrounding that. Great conversation. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Sharon. You can look her up, obviously, of course. Sharon Breckenridge Thomas. You catch her on Facebook and her website for running for Congress for District 23. Very appreciative. We had some good comments on here tonight. I do want to mention one, Dina Serrano. You know I love you, Dina. But you mentioned here that we need to have Democrats on. We actually have. So the show is open to Republicans and Democrats. We've had constable candidates on that were Democrats. We had another sheriff candidate that was on Democrat. We're going to bring on, check this one out, Michelle Barrientos Vela running for sheriff on the Democratic side. She reached out. We've tried to bring Republicans and Democrats onto the conversation. So I responded back to you, Dina, because it's important. People should know. Republicans and Democrats are welcomed on this show. And if you know somebody that's running, I don't care if they're, if they're brand new and they're scraping away and they got $50 in their campaign account. Come on the show and have a conversation, and you can show stuff. One thing, I'll tell you a good example, Dina. Sharon Rodriguez, remember her, Salo? Remember? She came on the show, a Democrat challenging Javier Salazar on the Democratic sheriff side. I didn't know what to expect, right? Her campaign mainly I had seen was on Facebook, but she came in here and she did a good job, man. I mean, she was talking about the issues. She had an opportunity to say she was and what she believed, and you know what? And she's making an argument. And I'm out there watching her on a Facebook page, and she's still going, knocking it out, and running a campaign. So everybody's welcomed here. Raymond Ford came on, Democrat, running for constable in Precinct 2. That as well. So everybody can come on this show, Republican, Democrat, you name it. Come on, let's have the conversation. I don't care what you believe. I always love the argument, the discussion. Bring it. If you got a problem with it, show up and let's have the talk. So let's see what we can knock out a couple. I may have to show just a couple of memes, but what did President Trump say on Twitter? Hold on a second here. Let's see it. All is well. Here it is. Full screen this comment. When did the president tweet this? 8:45. He just tweeted this. All is well. Missiles launched from Iran at 2 military bases located in Iraq. Assessment of casualties and damage is taking place now. So far, so good. We have the most powerful and well-equipped military anywhere in the world by far. I will be making a statement tomorrow morning. That was a tweet launched itself at 8:45 p.m., and we are at 8:50. There is some reports. Look, these things happen. These battle damage assessments happen immediately. But this is what you should know. We've got, God knows, 400 or 500 cruise missiles in the region, an aircraft carrier, destroyers, subs. We've got Patriot missiles. We've got 6 to 8 B-2 bombers, I think is what they said, stationed at Diego Garcia, ready to deploy. We can launch bombers out of Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, fly them across. This is an expansion of power. We can launch out of Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, put these men and women in the bomber, fly over, and drop and annihilate Iran in 60 minutes. I mean, we are launching. It didn't take a lot. It's hours to fly over there. I'll give them that. But we go supersonic, get there, and send a message to the Ayatollah and anybody else who's got an idea that they can do well or they can have a shot against this country. They're going to find themselves on the short end of a stick. They brought a knife to a gunfight. Forget that. They didn't even bring a knife to a gunfight. They're showing up, and they're going to launch their missiles. They're going to do what they're going to do. We pray for the men and women in theater right now. We don't want casualties. We want to inflict that. And look, there's no such thing as a fair war or proportional or response. We got to be careful not to upset or plunge the region into war. The bottom line is this, and every American should know this, anybody watching the show, because we're getting near the end of it, Iran doesn't stand a chance. And you what? Yeah. Here it is right there. Salo put this one up. This was we were all afraid of. Iran is getting ready for the war. Yeah. So, look, this is what we're dealing with right here, right? These knuckleheads have no chance. But what they can do is wreak havoc and damage. We've got to be careful, right? They can cut off the Strait of Hormuz. They can work on the stealth warfare. They kind of try to pull through surrogates where they destroy oil fields, and they can cause problems. We cause serious issues for them. Their economy's in shambles. They've got leadership problems over there. And they're in a world of hurt, and they've picked a fight, unfortunately, with somebody that's going to actually end their existence if they continue down the path. So it is what it is. So we've got a lot of thoughts and prayers going out tonight, obviously, for the men and women in uniform. Let's stand tall on it. Remember, here's what's happening in our broadcast. We got to wrap it up because we're getting near the end of the show. I didn't get a chance to go through all the comments. But, look, we come back. City Council didn't meet this week.
So, no comedy, no good jokes, Salo, or, we'll find them, though. They're back next week. We'll have some good opportunities to talk about the material and get it going. We're going to discuss council issues next week. There's no on deck tonight. There's a couple of things that hit. For instance, your SAWS rate increase came into effect on January 1st. If you notice a change in your SAWS bill, thank you, City Council. They're the ones that vote and increase your rates, but it's gone up by about 10%. Be on the lookout for that. Went into effect January 1st. 2020 news at City Council and politics. We're going to be talking about Connect SA, raising your taxes to pay for Ron Nirenberg's transportation plan. The pre-K for SA authorization is up this year as well. There's a lot of political things happening at City Hall. Plus, we're going to be coming into an election season. We know that's happening in March 3rd. In the primaries, the generals in November 2020. We've got a ton of candidates running. Come on the show. Democrats, Republicans, people who don't agree with me, people who think I'm crazy, don't make it. Come on, let's bring it on. Have a conversation. We'll have a good old time. I'll buy you a Starbucks cold brew with sweet cream, and we'll have a good old time. And if not, if you want something, I'll take care of you. Get you something else to drink. But bring the fight. Let's have the conversation and argument. Is there a couple of, we'll do a couple of memes, so we're not completely ending on a sour note about the destruction of Iran. There's one, if you can find it, about a Chevy truck. Can you find that one? This is Iran in its most basic defense right here. Nothing like yelling death to America while a dead general is in a Chevy truck. That one has to be shown. So leave it up there for a second because it's bitterly true, right? That is a Chevy, and the general is in the Chevy, and they're doing all they can to bash and yell blood, American blood in the streets. By the way, don't forget, they've been coming after America for decades. There is no in-between with these terrorist nations. I mean, you're not gonna find yourself in. I mean, look, we're not gonna send them $1 billion of cash. Oh, wait a second, Barack Obama did. But we're not gonna find ourselves changing these people's minds. They hate us. And by the way, Democrats, Hollywood types, they hate you. They don't care who you are, Michael Moore or Rose McGowan or any of these other people that are apologizing to Iran. Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They hate you, period, because you're an American. All right? They hate you because of what you have in this country. They hate what you stand for. So the Democrats better come to realize it pretty quick. And I don't know, they could sit there and say this is a presidential stunt. I'm sorry. Donald Trump's not waging war for a vote right now. He's waging war because American lives are on the line, and that there's trouble brewing. And unfortunately for Iran, we're going to bring the fight, and let's just hope again we protect our men and women. So we're up for it. Like it, share it, let everybody know. We had a great discussion tonight. It was really in depth, man. There was some good thought tonight, right? It's not your normal broadcast show, but we want to be thankful for Sharon Thomas. Thank you again to Detective Cliff Martinez. I want to thank the team. Saulo, Charlie, Tyler, we're going to have a great year. We've got to get out on the street. Expect more of that in the coming year. I'm going to take the fight and the argument out into the community. We're going to have some shows. We're going to talk about VIA. We're going to talk about those tax rates and increases. We're going to have all kinds of conversation when City Hall is back next week. It's your city. It's your vote. The best you can ask for is information. Understand what the facts are. Make your decision, then go vote. At the end of the day, we've got to earn it, right? We've got to go out there as politicians, as candidates, and stand in front of you and say what we believe. And then you vote, you make the decision. That's the beauty of this country. We want to say thank you, praying for the men and women right now in theater, in Iraq. We've got big time issues coming, man. This country needs our help. It needs information. But for right now, no matter what, all the political differences, all the problems with the president, what we need to do at this very moment, the men and women in our armed forces, we are there for you. We are thinking about you. We are proud of you. And the families at home that are sitting there tonight wondering what's happened and what this is going to look like, we know the sacrifices you're making. We are proud of you. We're thankful for it. 2020, we're coming strong. It is going to be Brockton Loaded Unleashed, and we are going to have a great time. This is the broadcast, and we are closing the show, and we are out.